Hi, my name is Darren and you're watching Not Done Yet. Welcome to my podcast, and today we'll be talking about practicing the right thing whether you win or lose. So a lot of people ask me, Darren, if I'm doing something, if I'm playing a sport, or if I'm if there's something that you want to get good at. And some people have asked me how in some of my athletic pursuits, triathlon, tennis, pickleball, how I've managed to continuously improve and push myself. I think one of the key things that I like to tell them, on top of obviously needing to have the right discipline and to push through, sometimes to push through certain limits and certain barriers, one thing I like to tell them is that you need to practice the right thing. And this is regardless of whether you win or lose during practice or during training. So here's a very common scenario, right? You go out for tennis practice, in my case, let's just say tennis or pickleball practice, and you go out there and you train with a group of people, and you go in there have a game plan, or sometimes you don't have a game plan, and if you don't, I suggest that you do have one. And you go in and have a game plan saying, okay, today I'm just going to practice all my forehands and all my backhands. I'm going to make as few mistakes as possible. I'm going to keep it consistent. I'm going to put opponent under pressure. I'm going to try to go to the net more. And what happens is that when we start playing, we start getting consumed by this need in having to win. And that's normal. And it's actually quite counterintuitive because a lot of us like to win, right? I mean, who here likes to lose? And when we play our practice matches, when we play our games, we start forgetting that winning or losing wasn't the most important thing at this point in time. What was actually important was that you took whatever you practiced during your drill sessions, whatever you practice in theory, whatever you practice and whatever you see and whatever you're learning from your coach, and you're putting it to meaningful practice. And you are putting it out there in a practice match, regardless of the result, right? I've had occasions where when I had to change my double hand backhand to a single hand backhand because of a pretty severe injury, and I was losing matches, months at a time, years at a time. I was losing more matches than I was winning, and it was very demoralizing. I mean, obviously nobody likes to lose, but what me and my coach were working on, what we're trying to do, is to get back into the foundation of hitting a single-handed backhand. And for those of you who don't understand what I'm trying to say, and if you don't understand how tennis works, let me put it into another context of maybe running, right? You're not going to run a good race every day. You're not going to have a good running session every day. Sometimes you're going to wake up, you're going to feel terrible, but you're going to put yourself out there and you're going to go for a jog anyway. What's important is that you showed up and you practice what you were supposed to practice. It doesn't matter whether or not you're breaking your previous record from yesterday, or whether or not you're going to set a new record. What matters is that you're practicing what you're supposed to practice. It needs to be meaningful. It needs to be mindful. It needs to be purposeful. That's the most important thing. When you start practicing what you are supposed to practice, when you start practicing the things that will eventually make you a winner and make you a champion, then when it comes to the matches that matter, when it comes to the races that matter, when it comes to the opportunities that matter, you will know how to apply what you've been learning all this time. So a lot of us, we get very caught up in the moment. We're caught up at this point in time where we say, okay, I need to win now. But what we don't understand is that by winning now and in changing our style just to win, we're not developing something that allows us to win in the long run. Let me put this in a business context for you. A lot of us want to run our business. A lot of us want to do our own thing. A lot of us want to own our time, right? And if you haven't watched in my previous podcast, I spoke about time. A lot of us want to accomplish great things. But yet, our actions dictate us to be winning the small battles, right? And we are very afraid to make mistakes. Sound familiar? It's true. We are very afraid to make mistakes. When we are moving on in life and in our careers, we are very afraid to take risks. We are very afraid to take calculated steps or missteps that might potentially break us through to another level. Why? Because in our minds, we're afraid to fail. And this has always been something that I've shared with people, and even I struggle with myself as well. A lot of times when we want to attain success in the quickest possible time, we start to change our methods and we change our ways. But we forget that whatever skill we're trying to hone is supposed to make us win in the long run. So this is what I wanted to share with you guys today, and that is that we have to practice the right thing regardless whether or not we win or lose. Then when it comes to the time when you're supposed to win, all your skill sets, all your tactics, all your techniques will come into place because you've done it so many times. They are not afraid anymore. It comes instinctively, just like that. It happens just because you've been doing it so many times, you don't need to think about it anymore. And that's how growth happens, right? That's exactly what growth is. Growth is in taking something uncomfortable and doing it repeatedly until it doesn't become uncomfortable anymore. But when we change our game plan just because we want to see short-term results, we don't actually grow. We do grow, but it's a very, very small amount of growth. And if you look at it, when you grow in small amounts, and if you are not consistent in the effort for long-term growth, you might never get there, right? And it's very, 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 very crucial that you understand this concept. When we do something, it needs to be purposeful. It needs to be mindful. It needs to be done whether or not we are winning or losing. It must be done, and it must be done because you're building the foundations and the fundamentals for tomorrow, the next year, the next 10 years, the next 20 years. Whatever tree you're planting today, in the next 10 years will become a forest. If you plant a seed today and if it doesn't grow, you're not going to give up on growing a forest. You're going to try something else. You're going to try a different. You're going to continue at it even though your forest is not growing. You're going to continue until you see the first sprout. You're going to continue until you see the first seedling. I like making references to nature, right? And if you look at how trees grow, and I'm not talking about trees that are farmed by humans, how trees naturally grow, it always follows one process. There's a flower, becomes a fruit, the fruit drops to the ground, there's a seed, you know the process. A bird picks it up, consumes it, and passes it out of its system and drops it across the different fertile lands, that eventually become jungles. Not every seed grows. That's the truth of it, right? But it keeps going and going and going like a well-oiled engine. And eventually, you get what you see. You see greenery, you see nature, you see landscapes, you see forests, you see all sorts of marvelous things that you never thought could ever have existed if nature gave up. And that's important. If the most powerful force, which is nature, shows us these lessons, then there's a lot for us to learn. I take a lot of inspiration from nature because nature is going to keep moving regardless of whether or not we stop. It's going to keep doing the same thing over and over again because that's the only thing it knows how to do. And so my challenge to all of you out there is, when you go for your next match, when you go for your next training session, if you're an athlete, if you're an entrepreneur, keep practicing. Keep practicing what you've been trying to learn and what people have been teaching you. And don't be afraid if you're going to win or lose. 2 key messages. Number 1, practice the right thing. Practice what you're supposed to be practicing. And number 2, don't think about whether you're going to win or lose. If you know that this is exactly what you need to be doing to attain success, keep at it. Keep at it and keep pushing. So let me put it in context for myself. I've really become addicted to pickleball, right? More so than tennis. And when I first started playing pickleball, I played pickleball like how I played tennis, right? I'd be hitting the ball really hard and I'd be winning some matches, but I'd be losing most of them, and I couldn't understand it. To me, it was really just a question of, what am I doing wrong? I mean, as a tennis player, I probably had better technique than most, but yet I was losing to players that were hitting the ball strange and they could use the court really well. So I did what I did best. I started speaking to people. I started watching videos. I started learning. I started coaching myself, and I realized that there were so many elements that were missing from my game. And for those of you who watch pickleball, hopefully, or know pickleball, and you guys should pick up the game because it's great. I didn't have a soft game. I didn't have a setup shot, right? What they call a third shot drop, and I couldn't defend the volleys and smashes very well. And so when I knew that this was the problem, and because I knew that I wanted to become a lot more competitive for pickleball, I started taking these practice sessions or these tips, and I started practicing them during matches, during community games, during tournaments even. And it was strange because I told myself it didn't matter whether I was going to win or lose, because this is how you're going to get better. I told myself that I'm going to keep doing it. So on top of the drilling, the hours and hours of practicing these skills, I also made it a conscious effort to practice and to put these things to good use during matches. Did I lose? Sure, I lost many. And at a point in time I was quite discouraged, and I thought that maybe maybe this isn't a game for me, I should just stick to tennis. And then one day it all came together and it clicked, right? One day everything felt a little bit different. One day my muscle memory was in place and it all started to come together. Professional athletes do this all the time. They will practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. And then they will keep practicing and practicing until it becomes second nature to them. They don't need to think about it anymore. And that is exactly what I'm trying to say. First of all, practice is important, right? Mindful practice, practicing the right things is important. And then you need to apply it. Regardless whether you win or lose, when an athlete is on a basketball court, on a tennis court, on a pickleball court, you are essentially practicing everything that you are putting everything into action, whatever you practice, right? Everything you practice is now in action. And if you practice the wrong thing, you might get away with some lucky wins, but when you play against players who are of a higher quality than you, you're going to realize you're going to struggle. So which one's the better outcome? You want to be able to beat players or beat athletes or competitors that are on the same level as you or better. That's how you push. That's how you grow. And all that can only happen if you're practicing the right thing, regardless whether you win or lose. It's not about the small victories. It's about winning in the long term. And that's why for me, practicing the right thing is so important. This is Darren, and thanks for tuning to my latest episode of my podcast. And if you notice, we got a really cool mug, a pretty cool shirt. Like and subscribe if you like my channel, and if you think, and hopefully these episodes make sense to you and you find them useful. If there's anything you want to tell me, leave it on the comment section and I'll get right back to you.